Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to have a look at a great example of our two favourite trade setups here at MTPredictor, our VS or volume spike and our W3 or wave 3 trade setup that's just unfolded on a great chart of the NQ. But as usual, let's start with our risk disclaimer and remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken. They're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. Put another way, all professional traders know and understand, but more importantly accept that losses can and will and do unfold. It doesn't matter what trading approach you take, there always will be losing trades. Right, this is a 3-minute chart of the NQ. We're looking at the 24/7 or the 24-hour session, and the two setups I'd like to look at are the VS setup, the volume spike, and the W3, the wave 3 trade setup. And as you can see, we've just had two of these unfold on the 3-minute NQ here. For those of you who are new to MTPredictor, just to remind you, we're not a black box system. We don't look to trade 100% of the time, just blindly, perhaps in the direction of our MTP trend colour, which is grey for in the process of making reversal, red for down and blue for up. We don't do this because markets are random half the time. Half the time you shouldn't be doing any kind of trading because the larger degree position is not clear. So of course that begs the question, how do we decide on when the large degree picture is clear? Well, for this we go to the higher time frame. So if you're trading on a 3-minute chart, you go out to the 15-minute. If you're, say, trading on a daily chart, you go out to the weekly. If you're, say, perhaps looking at some Forex charts on hourly charts, you go out to the 4-hourly chart. It's a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So I just want to use our training mode and go back here before this low unfolded. So what we do is we place our DP or our decision points on the chart. Now these are leading indicators. They're on the chart in advance. Let me show you what I mean. As the market's going down here, we'd place a DP off the previous low. So we'd right mouse click here, we'd do a decision point. And as you can see, that gave you an area of potential support. But you see how that support was there in advance. It was on the chart before the market got there. In other words, it was a leading indicator. If I turn our training mode off, can you see what happened? The market came down to that level where support was anticipated and made a reversal at that level. In other words, it was doing what we anticipated. If we come down to our 3-minute chart here, let's see what happened. Can you see what happened here? The market came down, it came into our higher time frame support zone. Remember that we had on our chart in advance. It then gave us a setup at that higher time frame support zone. In other words, the two time frames were coming together. So we're getting a buy setup on the 3-minute chart at 15-minute support. In other words, the picture was becoming clear. Our MTP trend was confirming this by being either blue or grey to show that market was in the process of making a reversal. So let's right mouse click over the blue buy bar, do the analysis, and this would have then given you the trade setup. Remember, we use correct position sizing to keep our initial risk small and under control. In this case, risking less than 2% of a sample $20,000 account. This would have mean going long one contract on the NQ for this particular risk here. As you can see, the market has rallied quite nicely. It's rallied up and has just reached the profit target, where a profit of approximately or just over 13 times the initial risk was available. This is why we like the VS setup. Not because it has a high probability of being successful. It's because when the profits come through, because it's a setup that's backed by the professional money. In other words, you can see here the market made a wide range bar with a high volume spike here beyond our previous low. In other words, most amateur traders would look for this to be selling, but because it failed to follow through, at this level, it means the professionals weren't selling at this level, they were buying. So the amateur traders were getting faked out here as the professionals came in to then look to move it higher. And as you can see, that's exactly what happened. It came up and did a strong rally. So that's why we like these VS setups, because when they work, they tend to be backed by the professional money and tend to have large moves. So this has been a very good example of our VS setup that has gave us a potential of a profit of not just large in dollars, but in risk reward units. What was interesting here as well is after the initial rally up here, we got an ABC correction. Do you see that? The market made an ABC correction down into this low here. This is what we call a W3 trade setup. It's a W3 trade setup because we start our sequence at the higher time frame support. The initial move up will be wave 1. This would be an ABC correction into wave 2. We're then looking to trade the wave 3. If I right mouse click here and do analysis, this was actually quite a big risk here on this particular move, so this was larger than you would have been able to take on a 2% on a $20,000 account. But you can see the market did indeed move up. It moved up into the typical wave 3 WPT, where a profit of approximately 5 times the initial risk was available as well. This is why we like the W3 trade setups as well, because they're designed to catch the wave 3. And the wave 3 is normally the strongest and longest in a completed 5-wave sequence. So in other words, represents the largest profit potential, not just in dollars, but in relation to the initial risk. So it has a large R to loss ratio. If you're actually trading this yourself, and you could have taken that initial risk, perhaps you're trading the micro NQ. If we go to the 15-minute chart, can you see that that's the previous high there? That's the last move into the low. You'd have right mouse click here down to the decision point. Remember, these would have been on the chart in advance. So as it's rallying up here, you could have had that higher time frame resistance area on your chart in advance. So when you come down to the 3-minute chart, can you see how this typical wave 3 WPT was also in the area of the 15-minute resistance area? You may have wanted to put your profit target just slightly higher, but it was in and around that area. So that's why that would have been a good area to look to then to take profit. As you can see, the rally on the NQ now is starting to peter out. So hopefully this has been a good example of not only how to use the higher time frame chart, as we showed here, to place your DP levels on the chart. Remember, these are there in advance. You're trying to anticipate, not project that the market will reverse at these levels, but anticipate a level where it may reverse. Then when it does on the lower time frame, you then deem that the pictures are becoming clear, and that's when you look to do your trade setups, not other times. So as you can see here, this 15-minute DP caught the low on the NQ really nicely, where we've actually had a lovely VS trade setup. And also within that as well, there's also been a good example of our W3 or wave 3 trade setup as well. We get the same setups in TradingView. If you just give me a second, I'm just going to bring a window into view here on a TradingView chart. So I'll just make it a little bit smaller so it comes into view here. Just bear with me for a second. If I bring this into view here, you can see here's our TradingView add-ons, and you can see we get exactly the same setup. So there's our VS setup coming in at the low there, and our W3 and TS3 setup there. I'll just hide our standard trade setups. You can see our advanced ones, and there you are. So it's exactly the same as you can see in our standalone version, and exactly the same as in our NinjaTrader add-ons as well. So if you're using the NinjaTrader add-ons, or if you're using our TradingView add-ons, or if you're using our standalone version, you'll get exactly the same kind of setups. There you go, exactly the same in TradingView. Right, I'll just take that back onto my other screen. So there you go, a good example of the VS or volume spike setup, as well as the W3 or wave 3 trade setup that's just unfolded on a 24-hour session of the 3-minute NQ this morning. And as you can see, great trade setups where the VS was the best one there, unfolding with a nice 13.5-hour profit. You see, interestingly here, the market now is starting to back off. Now it's reached that higher time frame DP resistance. And as we say, these are the two favorite trade setups we have at MTPredictor, and hopefully you can see why there are two favorite trade setups.